Hi, everybody. One second, I'm going to turn off the speaker. Of course, my phone wants to go off. Oh, crazy. Let me turn it down. All right, so I just want to share some knowledge, some spiritual knowledge. Hear me better? So, some things that I'm learning in my spiritual journey and walk with God that I thought I'd like to share. Um, and I seen this too on a post about um, seeing your former self in other people. And I wanted to look into that a little bit because I noticed that's in one of my last encounters too with somebody um, who I gave us another chance to being friends with, and ended up being a learning experience. It was interesting to see. So it brought me to familiar spirits versus former self, um, and how to know the difference, and just a little bit of education on both. So let's get into this. Okay, so not every familiar face is your former self. Sometimes what feels familiar isn't your past; it's a spiritual counterfeit. You guys have heard of um, familiar spirits? Uh, Familiar spirits mimic patterns, personalities, and emotional hooks to reopen old wounds. I know, like I definitely have had a lot of these encounters, and it's really, really strange. And I was really confused, and that's just another obvious red flag or sign that you're dealing with something like this is because of confusion. But it was really interesting just because I was noticing like not just the familiar faces, it was behaviors, mannerisms, um, and trigger words, things that like nobody else should know, and it should. It was just too many like commonalities, and something that somebody who you don't know or didn't formally know should know. Um, so the scriptures say, "Test every spirit to see whether they are from God," and that's in 1 John 4:1. So discernment is key. Ask, is this person reflecting my healed self or manipulating my former wounds? What's interesting about this, really, too, actually, all of it's interesting, but what's really interesting about this is a lot. My first big encounter with this is actually in a ministry setting. Um, and this is just to show, too, like, that the enemy is really desperate right now. And that's desperate pulls at anything. That's why it just seems like overwhelming with these things. And in a setting like ministry, and Revelations tells us this is going to happen too. But it really threw me off as I was trying to really walk with God, and just a lot of, like, why would God have me here when I'm trying to really walk with Him and recover at the same time? It was such a crucial time. But now I understand that it was really like something I really was able to learn and grow my discernment from. It was really hard and uncomfortable and unfortunate, but I learned a lot from it. That's why I want to share it too. Um, So, is this person reflecting my healed self, manipulating my former wounds? Watch for twisting of scripture, accusations, and emotional baiting. These people can know, a lot about scripture. Sometimes even brag about it. That's another red flag too. Um, and they'll use that information and they'll twist it on you. Um, so it'll sound like it's good and from a good place, but it's really not, because that's just not how God functions. You won't throw your past in your face. You won't shame you. I don't know if it is. Okay, so anyways, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. That's part of what can make it really confusing, but it's really happening, and it's happening a lot right now. So spiritual manipulation often comes cloaked in religious language. Just because somebody can quote scripture, just because someone can quote scripture doesn't mean that they're walking in truth. Look for the fruit, not just verses. This particular person, it was interesting to see, because I recognized what they were doing at this point. Like they were trying to impress me by using the fact that they were. Wow, I'm getting all kinds of distractions on here. This must be a really good message. So where was I at? So yeah, they were trying to impress me by their position and what they were doing inside the church and stuff like that. And I just was not going for it. This person was somebody who mimicked past relationships that I had. And so they were trying to impress me with these things. And it's funny because God knows your heart. The enemy doesn't, So I think he thought he was going to bait me in with these things and impress me, and think that just because it was a familiar face to me that I was going to want to be with somebody like that, and not at all. That's part of what my journey was. I had a lot of difficulties in relationships and knowing how to be in relationships. I was really codependent. I tried to use people in placement of God. So it made things like really devastating when people would leave my life. And so that's something God helped me learn from and grow from. So this person that, the enemy was essentially using, just thought they were going to bait me in with these things just because they were familiar, like a familiar looking face to me, and, and showing these behaviors and things like that. And it didn't work. I seen right through it. Because throughout my journey, God helped me develop my spiritual discernment really well. And I'm still learning, of course. But, I seen right through that. It wasn't about that. So trigger words. I'm sure we'll get down to this. So trigger words are going to be used to guilt and shame you, or just bring you back to your past, just so you know. But God uses these encounters as learning tools. I gave this person another chance at a friendship just because, I was going to, I don't know. I feel like God kind of told me to, you know what I mean? They had reached out to me and apologized to me. So I was like, okay, they inquired about why I did that. And I just told them, I'm not really sure, but, I'm going to just see how it goes, basically. I won't know until I see his actions, basically. Because he talks a good game, he sounds like he's all about God. In this situation, he is somebody that's well aware of the scriptures. He's aware of the roles in churches, how pastors should behave, how men should behave, women of God should behave. So he's well aware of the environment that he's in, and that it is not of God. These people say they're of God, but they're not. And he basically, he knew that they had used him as a scapegoat and lied about him, but when he presented it to them, they offered him money and a position, and he accepted it, which is another way of inviting these, bad spirits in and stuff like that. And it's an example of bad fruit. So he was aware that that's not how pastors should behave. They shouldn't lie, and they definitely shouldn't bribe. But he knew it, he accepted it, and so he now becomes part of the problem. And this didn't settle well with me when I confronted him about it. And he basically, I got backlash out of it. So he basically started accusing me of things, using scripture, twisting it, saying that I was just bitter. And he just defended it, basically. So he used personal truths that I told him to try to negatively hurt me when I presented the truth to him, just basically being a messenger, letting him know, that's not right. He didn't like it. He wanted to protect it. So that's where it ended, So this is just somebody that I learned these things from. So God will give you these encounters so you can learn things like that. And to show you how much you've grown too. So these can help you strengthen boundaries, clarify your calling, and break old agreements. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. That's in Genesis 50:20. You can journal these things if you're walking, and you're journeying with God, and with your spiritual awakenings and things like that. You can journal all these. It's really cool to document these things, and to learn and share information with other people. So there's specific words and behaviors that can trigger confusion and discomfort. Certain things that are from your past, and they're to trigger guilt and shame in you, to pull you back into that moment in time. And you'll know that's not from God, because God, there's no condemnation. God's not trying to bring you back to the past. He's trying to redeem you. So how does this encounter reflect past relationships or trauma? That's something these familiar spirits and bad spirits will feed off of, is past relationships or trauma, and other things too. So what did God show me through these moments? So these are things to journal down. That way, if it comes back up, you can reflect back on it too. These are good things and information to have to help you fight these battles and the spiritual warfare, because it is getting serious right now. So it's really good to have knowledge. So we're going to go into trigger words. So trigger words aren't just emotional, they're spiritual access points. They often echo past trauma or manipulations. They reignite shame, fear, or bitterness, pull you back into that moment. It's a great way to distract you and keep you in the past, and keep you from moving forward, and keep you from receiving what God's trying to give you, information, spiritual growth, or, the part of the redemption process. It's a great way to keep you stuck in the past. And this could be through people, your family, just people in your life, bringing up things from your past. They reinforce false identities or agreements. You are not your former self. You are a new creation. Stir confusion and emotional vulnerability. It's getting you upset, making you confused, especially when they're using scripture, because then it makes it seem like God's condemning you, and God doesn't do that. But because they're using words from scriptures, it makes it sound like that. And leave me comments too if you guys have experienced this too, where people are mimicking people from your past, like your exes and stuff like that. I'd really like to know, because I know that really hit me hard, and that's probably because this is something that God really needed to work on me with, and that was like such a easy thing to get at me with, is past relationships, because I do have I did have a lot of guilt about how I handled relationships and I had a lot of shame for it, and I know it's something that was like a great downfall for me. So I could see why they would use that. So this is how people can open the doors for enemy. Because I'm just like, how do people just let themselves be like an instrument to the enemy, And have I done it, or like currently doing it? I'm sure I did it in the past because I wasn't walking with God. So this is how you open doors to the enemy. It's through unforgiveness, bitterness or pride, agreement with lies, exposure to manipulation or occult practices, which is what that person was basically a part of through under his construction. Um, so things just like feed off of other things in there, and there's like there's like the spirit of Jezebel and stuff like that in there, manipulation. So it basically just feeds off of that. It's an easy environment for things to like that to be in. Okay. Is it possession or whispering? This makes me think of like when the devil entered Judas, things like that. How we try to, imagine how this happens or what's going on in the moment while they're saying these trigger words or things to remind you of people from your past or situations, most of the time it's whispering, it's not possession, this goes along with things like you're not good enough and things like that, how we have the enemy in our ear too. So suggested thoughts, nudges, emotions, repeats lies through other words, use triggers, phrases to reopen spiritual wounds. So I was like, how do they not like to say these things? But it's familiar spirits. They've been around you, like your whole life. So they know these things. It's really crazy. Something else to experience. I want to know if anybody else has experienced that too. So how to close these doors. Renounce the agreements. Break soul ties and emotional hooks. Replace lies with truth. Guard your ear gates and your mouth gates. With what you hear and what you say matters. Who you surround yourself with matters too. And ask God to help you grow in these things. That's why I got so much information coming at me right now. Is because I prayed. I have a whole journal. I'm always asking God, like, help me with this, help me grow from this, help me understand this, explain this to me. I journal all of it. Asking questions, ask him and he will, he'll tell you. You will receive. And that's so true. And because I was getting really frustrated about this, but now it's just all kind of coming through at once, and I want to share this information so everybody else knows too. So ask God, and pray. Ask God to help you recognize these things. And it's kind of cool to be able to recognize these familiar spirits and, these other spirits. That's another thing that brought me to this was I can kind of recognize it now. Like when somebody's drinking or doing drugs, I can see it, just because it's familiar to me because I wasn't drinking and I was doing drugs. And I know what those spirits look like and I know what they do and make you do and stuff like that. Maybe I'll get into that at another time. Kind of short on time right now because I have an appointment here shortly. So just renounce all these things. Don't give the enemy access. Break agreements with manipulation, flattery, and accusations. Just cut that off right away. That's from the devil right away. Put the accusations. You're stronger than that. And remember, it is not the person, right, that we're battling with. So, yeah, these things will feed off trauma and pride and confusion. So, close those doors. Let truth be louder than the whisper. So just as much as you're getting this information, these whispers, these lies from the enemy, fill yourself that much more with scripture and prayer. Let's see. Should we get into recognizing trigger and spiritual assignments? There's videos on these two that popped up for me that I haven't got to review yet, but I'm going to because I love to be informed on these things. Knowledge is power. So triggers are often strategic attacks, not random, especially if you're somebody who just I'm going to use me as an example. Okay, I came out of addiction and homelessness. I know addiction most of my life. I've had a lot of past traumas, and I know God's moving me forward, and He has a big plan for me. If nothing else, you know what I mean, like for my children, or to be an example to help others heal. It's just sort of coming together right now. But anyways, so um, so I know I'm gonna be attacked with these things. It's gonna happen. Um, and I have battles sometimes daily with it. But I'm trying to learn how to counter it too. So these will reignite shame or bitterness. Um, this will be reminders of your past or other people that have hurt you. Forgiveness is so important. So important. That's just such an easy way to target you. So try to resolve any unforgiveness. That's even with yourself too. Reopen emotional wounds, distract you from your calling. This is like such an easy one that people just it just happens to them. Distractions, because that'll be somebody pointing the finger at you, um, and it usually because it's something that's in them that they haven't healed from. But that's just such an easy distraction that it gets you just in your head. So resist the devil and he will flee. So you can hear these trigger words and these things coming at you. Don't respond to them. Sometimes saying nothing at all is the best response. Um, and like I said, he doesn't know your heart like God does. So he will flee. So that's in James 4:7. Let's see. Discern the source and the pattern. So familiar spirits often operate through people, patterns, and phrases. So ask yourself, is this person speaking truth or twisting it? Are they triggering me emotionally or spiritually? Emotions is an easy way to get to you, right? Um, that's why we got to have self-control with that and allow the spirit to work in you with that. Um, is this a one-time offense or a repeated pattern? As Christians, we're taught to, forgive people. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean we have to keep letting him re-enter our lives. It's like I even used this with this person that I was talking about. I was like, you already bit me this many times. You know what I mean? I'm not going to let you keep biting me. So breaking the agreement and declare truth. Renounce the spirits of agreements and declare truth over your life. I break every agreement with shame, accusation, and manipulation. I am not who I was. I am who God says I am. I walk through restoration. And I want to say this especially to people that have come from a messy past. You've got to speak this truth over yourself and know it. And I will speak it over you. And this is especially powerful when the trigger comes from someone close, because emotional ties can blur spiritual clarity. So, it's unfortunate when this comes from a loved one, a family member, maybe you can't just cut ties with, you just got to learn how to interact with them and understand these things and just kind of see past it. Boundaries with wisdom and mercy. So understand your boundaries and know that you have a right to them. Limit access to your emotions. Stop explaining yourself to people. Who cares if people misunderstand you? You just have to get past that. You don't have to over-explain yourself. Create spiritual distance if physical distance isn't possible. That's for baby daddies, for family members, things like that. You can love somebody without giving them spiritual authority over your peace. Transform your trigger into testimony. So you could go through all these things and it's your testimony, right? everything that you've gone through, all the sin that you've been in, everything like that, it's your testimony now. You can use that to help somebody else. Let's see. Prayer, fasting, and declaration. You can break the enemy's strategy, ending their cycle. Just keep strong in this, you know. These are ways to break you down, to keep you in your past, keep you in your same behavior, make you relapse, things like that. Don't do it. God is stronger than that. So are you. All right, guys. I guess that's it for right now. Just wanted to share that. And if you guys have experienced this, I would love to hear your feedback. It'd be awesome. It's always great to know that you're not alone when you experience these things, and it helps us to learn. So maybe I'll do another video to more about this, these type of things, spiritual warfare. And so, okay, I'm going to get off here. God bless you guys. I hope this helped you, and I will talk to you guys later. God bless you. Bye.